So you're going to ask a question, or are we just going to start start rolling? You're going to make me sit up straight like my mom? I can slouch, I can pick my nose. I can do anything I want. Gee, I love this place. I wonder if it's for sale.
It'll be all right.
All right, let's go.
So, Rod, why don't you tell me about the first time that you met Russ and what circumstance was that in?
Russell?
I don't know if I remember.
Well, I remember. I'm trying to remember the year.
Yeah.
It was early. I mean, we had just kind of got our legs under us, and I remember getting a call from A.G. Russell.
Yep, I remember all that. Yeah.
Yeah, A.G. Russell, well-known name in the knife biz, right? He's gone now, but he's one of the icons. And we had just really started doing custom knife making collaborations. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, Rod," he says, "I think there's a guy up in Alaska. He's got a pretty cool little knife called the Bear Claw." He says, "I'd like to do it, but I don't think I can do enough pieces with him to make it make good sense for him.
Yep.
You should call him." So I did.
Yep.
And wasn't long after that, you were coming down for a show in Seattle. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the name of the show. Maybe you do.
Yeah, that was. They only had it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Seattle. I don't remember the name of it
Yeah.
either, but yeah.
So
It was the first show I ever went to.
Was it really? Mm-hmm. First show ever. So I drove up there. We set a time for breakfast. Sat down, had breakfast, and I mean, I guess we kind of hit it off. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I remember that, and then next time I think after we got it going there, decided we were going to work on that. Then I think I went down to the
Oregon show.
No, it would have been. I think we was in Vegas.
Oh.
And went down and had dinner with you and stuff like that. And yeah, that's what it all.
Well, what was interesting about the Bear Claw was, I mean, it was hits, and the name was just perfect, just perfect.
Yeah, it was designed off of a 9-foot brown bear mount I had in my shop.
Just a perfect name, but the story behind it and why you did that design, I thought was kind of one of the things that helped us, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is when custom knife makers like yourself, artists like yourself, put that your brain drippings into a piece of art and say, "This is the reason I built this." Yeah, tell me the story on that.
Well, I always thought that for a protection knife, I made it for my ex-wife.
Right.
And one thing I was always concerned about in talking with the law enforcement and everything is that they can always get them away from women. And so putting that hole in there, and I figured that if you had a terrified woman and something's really bad going down on it, that they'd never get it out of her hand.
Yeah.
And so I was doing taxidermy at the time too, and I'd mounted a 9.5 foot brown bear standing on its back legs, and that one middle claw just seemed like, God, that's the perfect radius, and it could do some serious damage if they needed to, right? And so, but then that all evolved, and that was a great protection knife. There's a lot of police officers carrying it.
Remember the line we used in the catalog for independent women? That was one of the taglines we used on the first page of the catalog.
Yeah, well,
Bush pilots and independent women.
That's what it was, bush pilot. And there's a lot of them that used to take and put the bear claw, they'd take and Velcro it on the yoke of their airplane.
Yeah.
Because, man, you'd end up upside down, and that was always one of my biggest fears in being in Alaska and flying was upside down.
You knew guys that got tipped up, caught the tips of their floats and flipped their planes. And
Yeah. Oh, but that happens all the time. But to get, trapped in a plane upside down, or that's just, and not be able to get yourself out of there, cut it out of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of bush pilots that had them right to the yoke of the airplane, so that even if you were upside down, you knew where it was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been around, and
we sold a lot of them, and I mean it's gone through a bunch of different iterations. We see a couple of them over there we put serrations on them. I mean, now we got guys that are PFDs on their flotation devices,
kayaking,
kayaking. They've got them strapped on, and because you just grab that finger and put your finger through that hole, and it just goes to work, and you got such great control over it, like you said. So I mean, it's just a perfect knife for that. So
yeah,
that's how we met, right? And that's the first knife we did. And then, God, over the last So this was like 2000, Russ, I think. Maybe 1999. I can't remember exactly. I was thinking about that on the drive
I
in
was
this
too,
morning.
and I think I started actually really truly making custom knives. I think was in like '97.
Well, I was going to ask you that because I couldn't remember that either. Why did you start?
Oh, well,
I think I know the
I was
story. but-
guiding at the time,
Yeah.
and we'd killed a really big bull moose, and I'd been in the woods for a long time, and I just wanted to go home. And the hunter that I had, he had a beautiful custom knife on his belt. I couldn't have one. I couldn't afford one, and I was making my living with a knife and a rifle, and it was like it really kind of bugged me.
Seemed upside down, yeah.
Yeah, and I can remember the bush pilot coming in and landing. It was about an hour and a half before dark. And I think he half did it just to gig me a little bit. You know, it's like, hey,
You
Russ.
piss you off?
Yeah, exactly. If you could get that thing done in the next hour, we'll call you out tonight. Well,
What do you mean, quarter that moose?
on a good day, it's 2 hours. And it just kind of it jerked me wrong. And I said, yeah, okay, you be back in an hour. I'll have this moose ready to go. Well, one of the scales, I had an old folder, and the scale had broke off, so it was just eating into my hand big time. So I took some 100-mile-an-hour tape, duct tape in Alaska. That's what they call it. Every guide in the bush has
have
it.
it.
Wrapped up the handle, and this guy walks up to me and he says, hey man, he says, just use my knife. And it just took me wrong. It's like, man, you're carrying that thing, you don't even have any intention on using it, you don't know how to use it. And so I'm a little bit stubborn. And so I finished up the knife, that moose with that old knife,
Yeah.
and 100-mile-an-hour tape on it. But I was coming home, and I was sitting in the back of a Super Cub on a bunch of moose meat. And I'm going, man, somebody's making them things. I got to figure this out. This sounds pretty cool. So that's how it all started for me. Was I couldn't afford one of them, and it always intrigued me because there's a lot to it. I don't think people really understand how much goes into building a knife.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started. I started reading up on it and picking up every piece of scrap chunk of steel I seen laying on the ground, and started grinding. That's to figure out how to master the grind on it. I just grind up a little junk steel and finally got that figured out. It took a while. But
I remember, we'll probably talk a little more about guys in our history besides yourself, like Kit Carson. I'm going up to a knife show up there in Alaska, and it was an early show for you. In fact, I had a handful of our crew with me, and we were fishing, and you were there at that show. And Kit Carson was up from Kentucky.
he was judge, wasn't he?
He was one of the
Yeah.
judges,
Yeah.
and would you win best combat or tactical folder?
I think I got best hunter, and I think I got best fighter out of that show.
Fighter, that's what it was. Anyway, so I went up to Kit, who's been around for a long time making beautiful stuff, master class.
And he said whatever you wanted to say.
Oh yeah, up to and including another story.
Yeah.
And he picked your knife, and I think we were talking about the fighter. And I said, so, Kit, I mean, you know, I'm kind of more of a business guy. I'm not a custom knife maker. Tell me what it was about Russ's knife. He says, you know, that young kid just ticks me off. I said, why? He says, because his grinds are perfect. And I said, okay, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And he started to tell me how he judged. He'd close his eyes, and he'd run his fingernails along those grinds like that. And he could feel, because he'd done so many blades, he could feel imperfections where it was high and low and all that stuff.
Yep.
And he says, he's just too freaking good for how long he's been doing this.
I remember that show.
So, I mean, we'd long since already done the, kind of inked the deal with you on the bear claw. I might even been in production, but yeah, I thought that was pretty telling because you came, I mean, you got real good in the kind of the art world of grinding and polishing. Your mirror polish is just beyond description, but you got real good faster, I think, than a lot of guys. Maybe it was just commitment. I don't know.
Well, thank you for that. But I do remember that show big time because Kit came to me after the show, and there was 3 judges at that show. I was pretty proud of it because he come over there and he says, hey, he says, I want you to know this. He said, after every judge did their score, because they
Yeah.
do it individually, separately, he said, and everybody came up with the same score. He said, I made everybody go back in and do it again, and they all came up with it. It was a perfect 10 on that fighter.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first fighters I ever did, but the double edge is definitely a challenge. But I can remember grinding. I used to just wait until 7, 8 o'clock at night. Everything was calmed down. No phones, no nothing. That's when I'd grind fighters is at night. No distractions.
Yeah, I remember seeing your shop up in Anchorage. On the way out, I think, to, I don't remember where we were halibut fishing.
Yeah,
but
probably. Holy cow. How many times have we been up there fishing?
handful, yeah, quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
Not
lot
enough.
of-
Got to go back.
Oh yeah, it's time. I was up a couple years ago, but it's not quite the same as it was when we were up there. But
Well, yeah,
still
I
some
mean,
good
when you
fishing.
lived there and, yeah, all that good stuff.
But
But those were the early days, and man, we've done a lot of different designs, Russ, with you over the years since. You know, you've done. Russ is kind of one of those unique knife makers that, and he loves a challenge. I know I've challenged you with mechanisms, and I'm sure you cussed me out a few times for even asking you to, like on the fulcrum, I asked you to make it work.
yeah.
And after you threw it across the shop a handful of times, you
that
finally...
thing had more frequent flyer miles than we did, just from flying across the shop.
So, I mean, you know, Russ has always been there if I had a problem. And like a lot of custom knife makers that we've worked with, because, gosh, Russ, I wouldn't even guess how many custom knife makers we worked with. But, you know, most of the core is still there.
Yeah.
You know, you and Kit Carson, sadly, is gone now, and Ed Halligan, sadly, has passed on, but the Crawford boys are still out there, and Jim Hammond, our very first guy, very first custom knife maker, and Ken Onion's been around with us for a long time now, and the Lurches, and they just go, you know, Kenny Steigerwald, et cetera. There's just we've been fortunate. It's interesting because people will ask me, well, how did you get connected with Jim Hammond? Well, we started because I'm not a designer. I mean, I guess if I felt like I have a talent in the knife business specifically, other than the backroom stuff, is I've always felt like I had a decent eye for design.
you could pick out the design is
and
good.
some innovation, that because if innovation doesn't somehow help the guy that's using it or the woman have a better experience with it, it's safer, it's faster, it's cleaner, it cuts better, it's sharpens easier. I mean, pick it. Then it's not an innovation.
Exactly.
Nobody cares. So felt like I've been okay in that respect. But so back when we were getting started, it was like, okay, well, we think we know how we can, kind of had the business part put together. And it's like, okay, now what are we going to do for design?
Right.
And I used to walk the custom knife shows. The Guild show was one that I spent a fair amount of time at, yeah. And I saw Jim Hammond, and he had a knife called the Cobra Gold. And I thought, God, that is just the most beautiful tactical folder at the time that I've ever seen. It was just spectacular. And he is so anal about everything, as most really good craftsmen and artists are in that world. And I'm trying to, in my wildest dreams, figure out how in the heck I'm going to talk this guy who makes this amazing knife into letting us make a copy. And we're going to sell them, and then we're going to give him some money for selling them. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the biggest hill that I had to learn how to climb, was how am I going to talk to these guys? And they were, some of the custom knife makers were just as afraid of me as I was of them.
Yeah, but you always...
But it was one of those strange things, I just didn't, I felt really weird, and I thought, oh man, if I could just talk this guy into let me do this, it'd be amazing. And so we've been successful doing that.
Yeah, well, you're really easy to talk with. That's the thing too. You know how to talk with people and they're comfortable and there's no bull. That's what
Well,
I've always admired about it. It's black
yeah.
and white in Rod's world.
Well, that's the. It's funny because when you get started in business, people say, "Well, what did you learn?" And some of the things that you learn is stuff that you grew up with, yeah, and it just starts to come out into more. I guess maybe it's a little more poignant because it's, your dad taught you how to work hard. Because I was never I'm rarely the smartest guy in the room unless I'm there by myself.
That ain't true.
So, it's like, how am I going to outwork the other guy? How am I going to get to the top of the pile? And just hard work. So, that was one of the things but the other parts that, and it sounds kind of trivial, but I know you learn the same way is, you tell people the truth, and you treat them right. It's surprising what'll happen for you.
100%. That's
So those relationships, that's how they come about. And I feel good about that part.
yeah. I remember I was scared. It's like I didn't know nothing about this. Rod, they want to do a bear claw. Okay, that's cool. Do you remember that? And
Yeah.
you say, I still remember this. It's like, well, I'll send you a disclaimer, Russ. I go, I don't even know what the heck that was, right? And I go, nah. I said that I trust you, Rod. And to this day, I remember that handshake.
Yep. Just like
that
this.
was it.
Yeah.
And it's been going for what? How many years now?
Long time. 25, 27 years.
For us and 30 for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way it should be.
Mostly that's the way it has been with you and I for sure, but
Yeah.
it's, you do your best and you try to put, because boy, when we take on a project with a knife maker, a designer, an artist, whatever, we put a lot into it, right? We engineer it, and sometimes we've got engineering drawings, but we engineer it, and we prototype it, and we do all of that stuff, and we put a bunch of them on the shelf, we put them in the catalog, we advertise them, and that's not because we're trying to keep it off the streets and keep somebody else from having it. We're hoping to sell them.
Exactly. That's
It doesn't always
that's what we
work.
do.
The guy that's voting with his wallet, he makes the decision.
Right.
So, that bear claw resonated, and I remember the stack leather, which were my favorite, was just, it's the guy that just has that nostalgia and wants that, is willing to spend $1.50 to get it. If they don't buy it, we move on.
Yeah, that's it.
Gotta at some point, otherwise I'd have thousands of favorites.
Yeah. Well, people ask me that all the time too. They go, "Hey Russ, what's your favorite knife?" You remember the advice came from you.
Oh, what'd I say?
He said, your favorite knife should be the one that we sell the most of.
Right on.
And
Still is.
it is, and it's true because for you and I, if we didn't like something, we wanted that hole bigger or whatever, I can go out in the shop and modify it in a matter of minutes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that guy's going to like it, you know? So it's kind of a balancing. We got to try to design for specific uses, for specific jobs, and there's a lot that goes into that stuff.
Well, Russ, I think one of the things I learned too, and from working with guys like you, is, and maybe more you than many or any, was that you were there are designers, and God, I love them all, and they're and I totally respect their art. That if you said, I passed this around a little bit, could we make the hole in that a little bigger? Because guys want to use it with neoprene gloves on a diving.
Right.
You'd say, okay, let's see what we can do. It's not always the case, and that's okay. But so that I started to get to the point where I wasn't as hesitant to say, what would you think if we considered doing this, and here's the reason why. So that worked out pretty good. I like that part.
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, we're just trying to make the best product we possibly can.
Yeah.
And
it's worked out pretty good. We started out, I said I was terrified when I started to talk to Jim Hammond about doing designs, right? And then, I get asked a question with some frequency about, so what was the first thing that, when you really kind of felt like you had something as a company? And I could go on, they don't have enough tape in the camera to do this. But when I bumped into Ed Halligan at a Blade Show in 1997, And I'd seen it advertised in Blade magazine, and I went over there and I came back. I had a business partner at the time. I said, man, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. We got to do that thing. And we agreed, and we talked to Ed.
You have to be talking about the Kiss.
Kiss knife.
Yep.
And seemed like a simple little knife, just little 2 pieces with a clip, right? Bugger. It was a bugger to make. But so grab that over there, Russ. We're getting props slid our way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is the Kiss knife, and back in 1998, and it was just a simple little frame block, but the mystery was, how can you have a knife and have an exposed edge and not cut yourself? So that was kind of the slim, as you could pocket clip, all that keychain knife. We came back from that show with so many orders, I had no idea how we were going to fill them.
Right.
I didn't know how we were going to get the money to buy the stuff to make them.
But it's a good feeling.
It was a great feeling. And so that was kind of the first thing that launched in a big way in terms of product success. I felt like we had a pretty good, I hate to use the word business plan, but that's what it was, a pretty good business plan when we kicked her out the door. And I know, April 1st, 1994, April Fool's Day, that's our actual technical anniversary. Seriously, I took that day off.
Yeah, you should. You deserve it.
I did. I took that
You
day off.
deserve it.
Well, it was Easter weekend, and I thought, well, I'm going to be with my family. There'd be plenty of time to fret
Right.
on Tuesday or Monday.
And there's been plenty of fret too.
It hasn't all been easy.
It doesn't all come
No.
easy, you know.
So then
Like you said, you know, working on a knife like that, people don't have a clue on how the tolerances and everything. Just they got to be right, or it don't work.
people get cut, people get hurt. It's a bad thing. And then I guess the next, maybe the biggest innovation, and it really wasn't an innovation. I wish we could take credit for it. And I know Kit Carson wishes he could take credit for developing the flipper.
Mm-hmm.
But Kit was already kind of a rock star. He'd done some, he had, I can't remember the name of it. It was that knife that you could flip the blade on, and the one was a gut hook. And anyway, I've forgotten the name. Sorry about that. And he came to me at the Blade Show, and he says, I've heard good things about you guys. This is Kit Carson. He's a big deal. I mean, he's a really big deal. And he gave me this thing. I think he called it UDT. It was underwater, heavy duty pry bar kind of a knife. And I remember I was so overwhelmed with the fact that he even bothered to ask, and that he thought we should try it. I took that knife back the whole time going, I don't know what we're going to do with this. I don't know if we can sell 10 a year.
Right.
Because it's just not our wheelhouse. So I brought it back and we talked about it. And I had to go back to Kit and say, Kit, God, this is terrible, but I don't think we can sell enough of them to make you happy. And he was a gentleman. You knew Kit well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So a little later, a couple years later, I think, or maybe even the following year, I forget, I'm cruising the Blade Show again, and I see these 3 knives on the corner of his table, and they got holes in them. And I stopped and I talked to him. He recognized me, and I said, so Kit, those are amazing. What do you call those? He said, well, I call them M16s. Old Master Sergeant, or Sergeant Major rather. And he started telling me the story about those knives and why he designed them and why he built them, because he was an old tanker, right? He put that flipper on there. It wasn't just to open it. It was to keep the guys that get their hands all oiled up when they were opening up oil cans to fill up the tank
I
with
didn't
oil.
know that part of it. Yeah.
He said, I had guys that just cut the heck out of their hand when they were jamming that knife or whatever. They weren't supposed to be using a knife, but they were doing it.
Right.
And just cut the heck out of themselves. And he says, I lost a soldier for weeks, maybe months, because they just cut the hell out of themselves. Yeah. So anyway,
he figured out
how did
there was a reason, and he made it work.
Yeah, so he took that flipper, and it was just on the big dog. That's what he called the M1614 or 04. And we did exactly the way we was true to his design on the 2 smaller ones, the spear point and the smaller Tano, but no flippers. Made them, beautiful knives, worked great. Went to a couple of shows, and I swear to God, almost everybody said, why didn't you put the flipper on the other two? And I go, mistake? So we put flippers on them, and I think today, Russ, and I'm not going to sit here and take credit for something that Kit Carson did other than we put it out there, right? Man, there's a whole bunch of folding knives that have got a flipper on them.
Yeah.
Because it's just a super smart, simple way to deploy a blade, which you're talking about solving a problem, that quick deployment of a blade. There's no springs. There's really nothing to fail.
Yeah.
And I think Kit Carson discovered something there, and I think we helped him kind of bring it up and turn it into something that was
I agree with that.
kind of a big deal.
Speaking of Kit, do you remember when I was working on the Bologna? And I was supposed to be in New Orleans? You do remember that, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, man.
Please tell us.
Oh, God. Rod had called me up, and he says, yeah, we want the Bologna. I go, well, that's great, but I don't got one made. He goes, well, get on it, because you got to go to, I can't remember how many days we had, 3-4 days, I don't remember. And I went out in the shop, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked. And I can remember one of the kids bringing me out supper.
Food.
Good, Dad, you got to eat. Ate in the shop. I finally got the Bologna done, and I don't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. And I thought, oh, God, I did it. You know, I'm sitting in my chair and I'm checking out the prototype. It's working, and I get a phone call, and it's Rod. He goes, "Where are you?" I thought that was kind of a weird question. You know, and it's like sitting in my chair looking at this prototype. He says, "Russ, you're supposed to be in New Orleans." I worked on it for so long, I didn't even know what day it was, right? So I missed the flight. Oh, man. So I go there, get everything straightened out. I get there, and you'd sent Kit, and I believe Ed, to come pick me up from the airport, because the show was already going on.
Yeah, right.
And that's the first time I ever met Kit, right?
Oh.
He's an intimidating dude. He was, you know. And I come walking down, and he goes, "You Russ Kommer?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "You know what you call a knife maker that doesn't know what day it is?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "A dumbass." I'll never forget that. It was like,
It was a classic.
And then he's just like, "Come on, let's go. We're going to get you going," you know. But that was the first introduction to Kit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was really cool too, because I could go up there being the young kid on the block and go, "Hey, Kit, man, what have I done wrong here?" And you know, a lot of those guys could have just kicked you to the curb and said, "Figure it out," but they always took the time. They always took the time to explain it. I don't remember. I think I was talking to Patrick the other day about it, and I don't understand why some of the old guys that were really good at what they did,
You're right.
actually would take the time with Russ and explain it. And I think it was because they thought, or they knew deep down that I was serious about it, instead of just wasting their time. I think that's how it all happened for me. And so them are a lot of experience that saved me some time and mistakes.
Yeah.
And they were good guidance for me.
Well, see, that's because my world was, I worked in the corporate world for about 15 years before I ended up in this crazy business, the knife business. It's kind of the outdoor industry. And I mean, it was kind of an accidental thing how I ended up in the knife business, but that's one of the things that's been really, really important to me and turned into one of the reasons, and the passion I have for it was the relationships. So you talk about the old masters like Carson and Michael Walker and some of those guys that are just top of their game, right?
Yeah.
And they were willing to sit down, and they'd help me too, and say, "Man, I don't know if we can do that in production. So let me show you how you do that." And you'd do the same thing, still will. And they'd sit down with a new maker, and I felt like it was, they wanted to share. They were confident enough that they weren't concerned about competition per se. It was just,
in my mind, they were so
kind of a legacy thing
Yeah.
too, right?
Exactly. They wanted to pass on the craft.
Because they're a little, right.
and I do that. So, you know, a couple of young kids, you know, some of them, Case and those
Yeah.
guys that were guides and stuff, and they wanted to have a knife, and I've taken them into the shop, and they thought they wanted to be a knife maker, and after 60 hours, they still haven't got a knife. They're going, dude, I'll just buy one, you know. But I try to do that and try to help pass on the craft as much as I can to
Yeah.
the young guys. If they're willing to sit down and put up with it
Yeah.
and put the time in for it, I'll help them.
No,
It's
he's
just
always-
like hunting.
He's always been that way.
If I can help somebody get further down the road and get their buck or whatever we're after, I enjoy doing that. I really do.
Yeah. No, I know. It's like Cape Buffalo, you know.
Yeah, that was a good one. Oh God, Rod. I'll never forget
that.
that
Was
thing.
a real class rodeo, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, that one. There's some things you just never ever in your life forget, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
That thing come out of there and smash the truck. Oh yeah.
There's a double tap, I think they call that. The buffalo hit the truck and we hit the tree
Yeah,
simultaneously.
so the guy was there. That was funny because I was watching and I'm going, no, that bull come running out of the brush and smashed the truck, and then right after that it was a boom, and the piece is
Dead stop.
He says, what was that? He says, well, the buffalo hit the truck, but then what? I said, then the truck hit the tree. And he's like, oh no. Yeah, that was crazy rodeo there. But you know, nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
We got a
I don't know, that little Jack Russell Terrier that's on my lap, his tail did have a curl in it.
Yeah,
I
well-
was holding it pretty straight now.
he didn't want to jump out of the truck no more either for a little
he was
while.
scared.
But yeah, and then I can remember Mike. He just looked at me so somber, and he's like, Russ, we can't chase that buffalo with a bow no more. He said he's going to kill somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he would have.
Yeah. Well, he ain't going to no more because we put the hammer
He's
on
done.
him. Yeah.
That's a wrap.
But we had to take the rifle, but that's the way that worked. Is
Yeah.
all, you know.
No, that was good.
But
That was a
remember
good
all
hunt,
the
yeah.
all the needles and stuff everywhere stuck down in the hood and everything for smacking that tree? It just shook that thing. It was hilarious.
What
Mike.
amazed me was the two guys that were riding shotgun on the top didn't launch.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was in the back seat all by myself, and then one of the young PH was at the wheel driving, and I'm watching this bull, and he just cocks his head, and I can see it in his eyes. He says, "I'm taking you.
Yeah.
I'm coming." And I'm looking, and I look up at the PH just before the buffalo hits the truck.
Yeah.
He's coming.
But he's
and then
looking at the buffalo, wasn't
Right,
he?
he's looking at the buffalo, and I'm looking at, and I turn back to look at the PH, and I'm going to say, he's coming, and boom, there's a tree, and it was a wham, wham.
Yeah, it's not the fall, it's the sun.
And then everybody gets out of the truck, it's like,
Yeah.
everybody's good.
But what I thought was amazing to me is how that buffalo hit the tire with his bosses,
yeah.
and it actually caved in the quarter panel with his nose. So just think what happens if you
Yeah.
get hit with the horns, you know?
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
seen some of the videos. Remember the video we saw, that one guy that got tossed?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I brought that up the other day to somebody, and she said, "Yeah, I saw it. Oh, it was a taxidermist."
Oh,
And he
you
says,
seen
"I
it?
saw that."
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a bazillion views, I think. But
That was when we were chasing them with bows over there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That PH come up to me and he says, "You one of them guys that want to shoot one of these with a bow?" I said, "Yeah." Then he showed me that video, and I'm going, "You got to be kidding me!" He goes, "Yeah, that's me. That was a bow shot, Cape Buffalo.
Yeah.
You still want to go hunt them?" I go, "Yeah, we're going hunting them." Yeah, but that's good times there, boy.
yeah, well, we had a lot of them. Had
And
a
then-
good time last time in Montana.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I was particularly, what I really liked with my old ranch hand buddies over there that I grew up with as a kid in Montana was after you shot that deer and we were getting ready to follow the blood trail down into the brush. And you know this because you used to guide up in Alaska and you got a lot of brown bear stories. They all come out with their Glock strapped, their 10 millimeter strapped on there because there's a lot of grizzlies. And it's like,
yeah, and
okay.
I never really. It just doesn't seem like grizzly country to me coming from Alaska,
Yeah,
but
well,
it's
I
a
mean,
real deal there.
They're range animals and they're bloody everywhere down there. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's-
step out of the trailer, step out of the house, you look around, make sure
Yeah, you're packing
you
something.
gotta be at least paying attention.
Yeah,
Because it's the guys that aren't paying attention that end up to be snacks, right?
That turned out pretty good though. We got him in the
Yeah,
end.
no, it was a good hunt, good short blood trail. Really, you know, he just snuck off and holed up in the brush and
Yeah, we had to push him
busted
a
him
little bit.
once, and he tipped over. But he's a beautiful deer.
Yeah, he'll live forever now. He's being mounted. He'll be done probably in another week,
Yeah.
2 weeks, something like that. I just like, you know, Nick.
Yeah,
Where we hunted black
he did-
bears up
yeah,
there.
He did my black bear.
Yeah. You remember going in there in the middle of the rain to set the bait?
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, in the mud and crap, but we got him.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we did that. It worked out well. That was, how many years ago was that? 2, no? 3?
it's probably 3 or 4, Russ. Probably 2020, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Been almost 4 years.
Yeah, time goes quick.
Good.
And we've been on a lot of adventures since that one.
Yeah,
know,
Did some good fishing trips.
Africa, Alaska.
Yeah. Montana, I've been to
Montana.
Ohio a number of times.
Yeah, bow
been
hunting in
to
Ohio.
Kansas a number of times, been to Missouri a number of times.
Yep.
So we've had some fun, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's always an adventure, that's for sure. Yeah.
I especially like the one of my favorite memories was I brought up I think 3 guys from the shop to go fishing for reds, and then we were going to go do some
Kingfishing
halibut.
and halibut.
Yeah. And we're on a Kenai, and well, tell people how you fish for reds first of all, because it's a little bit of an art form, and it's a mystery, right? But
Yeah,
to some of us.
and people don't really understand that when they hit the fresh water, they quit feeding. They're just going up to spawn and die, basically. But when the reds are coming up the river, they're kind of filtering the water through their gills. This is the theory. But so they're coming up and their mouth is doing this the whole time, and they're basically not biting something. And we call it bonking. But you use a fly rod, you know, and what you're trying to do is to drift the fly into the fish's mouth.
Yeah.
And
which
legal.
is really an odd concept.
It is, and you're
most
trying
guys.
to put a fly this big in a gap that
Right.
wide when he's coming up there. But once you figure it out, it's not too bad. It's a technique. You'll be able to feel it, and the real art is, in my mind, is to feel when that fly hits the fish. It's just kind of a dull, mushy movement on that fly rod. But as soon as that happens, they just start going back. So it's not like a strike of a walleye or a muskie or a bass or something like that. And so if you don't set that hook right then and there, they've shook it out of their mouth, and you didn't even know you had one. And then the other thing is that you have to really know where the fish are in the river, because if they ain't in the river, you can't catch them. You sit there and beat the water all day, we've done that. You're waiting for the school fish to come up there. So that's kind of the technique of it all. And you know, you've been up there.
So there was a couple of guys there, and they
You can only be talking about Doug and Pat. Huh?
maybe.
Yeah.
And they hadn't caught all their fish. And you and I and Mark had caught our fish for the day, and we're standing out there on the dock.
Sitting on the bank watching these
drinking
guys.
a cold beer, and these guys are down there trying to get their limit for the day. And how'd that go?
That was actually pretty good, I thought. But
It lives in CRKT lore. I don't know about yours, but it's a pretty funny story.
And the thing is, sometimes these fish will run. People think they got to cast all the way halfway across the river.
Well,
but,
fly fishermen just inherently have to do that because they can.
Yeah, the furthest one wins,
Right.
but that's not true.
Just because you
but,
can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you remember, we were sitting there, and if you watch enough, you'll see a roller come up, and that kind of, if you see one or two come up in relatively the same space away from the river, that school is following something. There's a little bit of a ditch or something in there, the current's right or whatever. And if you're watching that, now you know how far to cast,
Right.
and where to cast. And so you remember Doug, and Doug listens, but he's always just happy-go-lucky guy. And I said, Doug,
It's like about a 12-week-old puppy most times.
yeah.
He's still trying to grow into his feet.
Yeah. And I said, Doug, you want to catch a fish? Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what we're here for, you know. I said, dude, you need to move up about 3 feet to your left. And Patrick looking at me like, screwing with him like I do most of the time.
Yeah.
And so Doug, yeah, he's gonna do it. So he bucks it up the river. You remember that? And he pulls out some line off the fly reel, and I said, 2 more. He pulled a couple more, and he flipped it out there, and yeah, sure enough, he catches one, right? Then he fights him, and Patrick's looking at me like, yeah, really? Dude, you just got lucky, right? He ain't buying into this.
Right.
And so then Doug got that, got it landed, and the fish had moved in a little bit, I think, if I remember, in or out, but they were rolling in there, and I said, hey, Rod, check this out. Dougie, you want to catch another one? Yeah, man. He's standing there just waiting, like a little soldier waiting to get the directions on what to do. And he peeled some line out, and sure enough, he hooked another one, right? Well, then Patrick, he's like, yeah, this is all bull. Yeah, I ain't buying this stuff. You remember the guy that we didn't even know standing at the dock, and he's going, and I told Patrick, I said, I could catch one from the dock. You remember that? And the guy we didn't even know goes, yeah, I want to see that. And he gave me that rod. Remember that? He gave me that bait caster, and I walked out there and I made one cast and caught one. Then we went to bed. I think Patrick fished half the night. I don't know if you ever did get one, but that was a classic there.
Yeah, that was one of those.
Doug still laughs about that.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so do we. Every time we do get together, it's like, yeah, you remember Kenai?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Mark that we had him hooked up into a great big skate out in the...
Yeah.
We told him
before by piece sheet of plywood.
Yeah, and you know it's a skate when the line comes up, and we knew that. We just worked him half to death over that. Yeah. It's the biggest halibut out here. Come up with skate. Yeah, you gotta monkey with those kind of guys, you know.
No, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good times. A lot more to come.
So we're sneaking up. Well, actually, by the time anybody sees this, if maybe anybody besides people in the building watch it, we'll see. But we'll have had our 30th anniversary in business, and everybody. It's cool to kind of commemorate certain milestones, whether it's birthdays or anniversaries, wedding anniversaries, that kind of stuff. But to commemorate our 30th anniversary, it just seemed like a really easy choice to work with you. And when you showed me the Soldatna and told me the story about it, why don't you tell people the story about your custom-made Soldatna knife, and then I'll kind of try and add a little flavor to it for why we picked that knife.
Well,
where you gave it to me, and where it's going after I'm dead.
Yeah, well, and all that stuff is important. It's important to you and I anyway. But a hunting knife to me doesn't have to be a 8-10-inch blade, and so I designed this knife. It's a small enough knife, but it's got a thin enough blade so you can get in there and do inside. It's not in the way. It's short enough you can get your index finger up there, because subconsciously your mind knows where your fingertip is. And so for me, if you're inside an animal, you don't need anything that's too long. It's just hanging up and it's causing troubles. I don't make a lot of them with guards, but this one we did with a slotted nickel silver guard. This is the custom, and this is the exhibition koa on it. So I thought it was beautiful. That dark wood, We did the mirror polish on it, and I've designed quite a few hunting knives, but in my mind, this is the do-it-all. Right there, one-shot deal, you got it. And when I got it all done, we were planning on going to Africa. And I got it all done, and old Aiden, your grandson, he's been toting with you forever, and he's been to my farm a few times. In fact, I think we got him his first duck out there.
You did, yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring this to Africa and present it to you as your knife, but then in the back of my mind, you would pass this on to Aiden. And I couldn't wait, man. As soon as we got to Africa, I dug it out of my pack and I come up here and go, here, got something for you. And it was pretty cool because all you did is look at it and go, can I build that? And I said, absolutely, it's yours. So that's how it all kind of started for me. I love the design. It's easy to choke up on, upside down, whatever you want, however you got to do it. You know,
Well, and the neat thing about that knife, Russ, along with so many others that you've made over the years, fixed blades, folders, whatever, is it's classic. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So we chose that knife, and that story is, I mean, you're never going to see the detail on this on the screen here, but it's just, the grinds are perfect. The mirror polish is amazing. The spacers on the handle material, the wood scales is just beautiful. The leather sheath is top notch, top grain, and I love the way this thing snaps. It's just, there's no snaps or buttons or things that are going to fail. It's just super well thought out. So with that story, and it's like the bear claw, when we did the bear claw, there's a story to it, and that means something, and it's going to mean something to my grandson. It means something to me. I think the fact that we picked this for our 30th anniversary hopefully means something to you.
oh, it's an honor for me.
So we're going to do, and I wish I could say I'd been super involved in all of this, but I'm spending most of my time chasing a tractor around on a mowing grass these days. But we decided to go ahead and share this as a 30th anniversary piece. And so the collaboration on this is maybe a little more of a collaboration than we typically would do. And over the years, we've come up with kind of some different things and ways to get knives made and product made. So in this particular case, we've taken your Soldotna, and now we've taken we wanted to step it up clearly for a production and a collector's version. The collector's version is Damascus, right? So you can see that and that's actually, so the collaboration piece is Russ Kommer design, the steel, and we're an American company, family company. We wanted it to be kind of have that statement of American made too. Mm-hmm. So the steel, the Damascus is actually from Vegas, Damascus, down in Las Vegas. Our guys went down there and watched it, and they went through the whole process of sourcing the Damascus and making sure it was just exactly what we wanted it to be. It's carbon steel Damascus, American walnut scale, red linen spacers, just like your custom.
Yeah, it's identical.
And brass rivets is not the right, what am I saying?
Yep,
rivets.
Yep, flared rivets.
Flared rivets. But it's also, the other part of the collaboration is, it's a Russ Kommer design. We've got Vegas Damascus in the blade, American walnut. Is that a company down in southeast Idaho who's not quite as been around as long as us, Tops Knives, is actually doing all of the work on this as far as the heavy lifting on the manufacturing. So they're grinding the blades, and they're fit and finishing the handles, and they've sourced out a beautiful leather sheath to go along with it. That's just fantastic leather.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
identical.
Amazing piece of work. And so we'll have a couple of hundred of these as for those folks that are collectors that might want to put one in their safe or pass along to their grandson. Then it'll come in a nice walnut box. And then for the folks that are out there that are say that's a neat knife, kind of like with a lot of custom knife maker stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. The guys are going, man, I'd love to have that knife, but it's $1,500,
Yeah.
$2,000, and I maybe I don't have that kind of money, or maybe I don't want to use it, but I like the design. So even with this one, it's maybe a little more than you want to just put it. It's going to be one of a couple hundred pieces. I want a user. Mm-hmm. I want to take that Russ Kommer design. I want to put it in my pack. I want to use the damn thing.
Yeah, and that's what you did there.
So that's what this is a production version. Same amazing sheath. The steel is a carbon steel with Cerakote, so it's tough as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tool steel, right?
It'll take whatever we can put.
Yeah, it'll take more than I can give it. It's got a micarta handle, same spacers. It's a really handsome piece. So for the guys that want to buy this thing and put it in their pack, it's going to be available just like we do with regular custom pieces. This has got another step in it because it's kind of commemorating something. It's a big deal to us.
Exactly.
Not a lot of companies get to be
And it's
around
beautiful,
for 30 years.
and the presentation box, you know, it'll last. That could be passed down for generations.
That's the hope. That's the hope. So
Yeah,
a little bit about the Soldatna.
It turned out really nice.
Yeah.
I was
That always
pleased.
makes me happy when the custom knife maker says it really turned out nice.
Well, and you
Because we're trying to make you happy too.
exactly, you know, it's that's a really big important part for you is to make sure. I've never once done something with you that you go, Russ, are you happy with everything? And so that's important to us
Yeah.
because we've put a lot of our blood, sweat, and tears literally into it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool that you guys care about it, you know, and therefore we appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it works both ways. I appreciate your comment. It's you know, at the end of the day, our piece of the whole kind of collaboration, and we didn't invent it. You know, collaborations, they've been going on for a long time with custom knife makers. Maybe not, you know, a little here, a little there. There's other companies that were doing that stuff. And this, I think, though, that we probably took it to a different level.
Yeah,
You know.
definitely. There's
Tried.
some that got one or two guys. You got a whole fleet,
But that's kind
and
of our
everybody
core,
has.
yeah.
And everybody kind of has. You got everything, the whole gauntlet covered in my mind. There's guys that, all right, we need a tactical, we need EDC, we need a hunting, we need a fishing, and some of us do a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
But then there's some guys that are just, you know, they specialize. Maybe they were like Kit.
Yeah.
Ex-military, whatever. They've been in the field. They know what they need. It's like me, as far as I've taken so many animals apart, Rod, that
Yeah.
I just know what works for me and what should work for the end users out there that don't get to hunt 120, 30 days a year. And so we tried to do that with all the designs. And how many times we've sat down on a fishing boat and talked about, hey, you know, maybe we could do this and it would do that. And it's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try it. So
Well, I
then-
loved that. Well, going back, excuse me, the Big Eddie.
yeah.
I said, why are you hollow grinding that on one side and flat grinding on the other? And you said,
Yeah, well,
because I'm going, this doesn't make any sense.
but it does.
It makes perfect sense.
So once you take and lay that flat side down, and there's a hollow in there, it's keeping the blade super thin. So you're cutting all the meat off the skin right off the get go. But the hollow grind is actually creating a little bit of an air pocket under that meat, so it doesn't want to hang up. So when it's time to take the skin off of the meat, it actually makes a noise, don't it? It goes, and it just flat works.
Well, I mean,
but-
that was the kind of stuff that came out in conversation.
100% in a fishing king salmon in Alaska.
Yeah.
And so, but we were never scared to go try it. You know what I mean? Go and spend some time, suck up some dust, grind them, and then go try them. That's the other thing is that, all right, now we got it. So now we got it. Let's go make sure that it's going to do what we say it's going to do.
Might have been a different trip for us, but we had brought a bunch of Big Eddie fillet knives up there, and we were a pretty new company. And I said, "Oh man, what a great way! I'll take a handful of those up there, and we catch some fish." And we get to the dock with all these halibut, and we go up to the cleaning tables. And I said, "Hey guys, they're processing our fish, right?" I said, "Hey, you want to? We're in the knife business, CRKT, Columbia River Knife and Tool, whatever. Try these out. Give them a go, man." We're handing out free knives. These guys are excited. They're busy.
That was in Homer.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I got pictures, right?
Yeah.
And they're taking these knives and they're butchering these halibut, 30 to 50 pound fish. And pretty soon it's like, I look at one of these guys and he takes the knife like this and he goes like this on the edge of the cleaning table. And I go,
Too sharp.
what are you doing?
Yeah, too sharp.
And he goes, it's too sharp. And I went, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
So, I mean, you know, stuff like that. It's
Yeah, because
been,
even in Africa,
we learned on stuff like, right.
dulling a knife up,
point.
it's like, whoa, why are you doing
Because
that?
they're used to doing it on a rock.
A rock, and they just don't know. They've never had a sharp knife.
Not like that.
No. And so we've gone through all
We
the
learned
steps
some
to
stuff.
do it. Yeah, 100%. And it's like the serration on the Big Eddie, the little in front of the
Yeah.
Picasso. I've had people go, well, why would you want that? Well, it's saving your edge. That first cut across all the scales and the skin, it's cutting it with the serration and not laying over your edge on the rest of the blade.
Yeah.
And so it has a purpose for what it's doing, and it does. It fulfills that purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of Big 80 fillet knives floating around up in Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah, fact.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that, and this is kind of out of sequence, and there's no sequence per se, we're just having a conversation, but I've been asked to say, well, why, you know, why did you do this? Why did you start the business? And what are some of your memories? So, not to get long and philosophical, but I'd been in the corporate world for about 15 years. It was good. I mean, I liked it. I worked hard. I felt like I contributed. The companies I worked for were rock solid good companies. And then it just got to the point where I felt like I needed to do something because I moved a lot. I needed to have my family know, I wanted my kids to know their address and their phone number for more than just a month or two.
Right.
And so I actually took a job with a competitor. And I worked hard for them for 7 years. They were good to me. I mean, but there came, you know, there was a time there where their business was going a different direction and it was struggling. And so, you know, I was given marching orders to find a solution to fix that problem. And so me and another fellow who ultimately ended up to be my business partner for a short period of time went out and started finding a different way to kind of solve those problems. And we presented that solution to the Japanese parent company, and they said, no, we like the way we're going right now. We're going to stick with the kind of the old school. And I said, okay, well, it's your money.
You're right.
It's your business. I mean, my job is to find a way to make you successful. And they decided they didn't want to do that. Well, that's fine. I had no problem with that. But we thought we had a good enough idea, a good enough plan that I mean, that's what people do, right? You're a businessman. That's what you do. I just decided that I was going to put it all on the line and see if I couldn't. The American dream is, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to start my own business. You just, certain things kind of evolve and you make decisions. Say, well, shoot, I think I can do this. Mm-hmm. So we launched CRKT, or as it was known in the beginning, Columbia River Knife and Tool, and still is, but CRKT is kind of what it's evolved to over the last 30 years. And the custom knife maker collaboration, the trying to find a way to bring a world-class design to market for a price that people could afford.
Right.
And then get it out there in a place where people could find it, you know, not just be in a small little eclectic brand that you couldn't find.
Right.
So that was kind of what my background was getting products sold and marketed, and that all seemed to be working okay. You know, there's been some times where, no, there's been a lot of times, and they're not over yet, where it's like, biggest lessons that you learn when you're going through that, and you've been through this. Anybody that's been in business for themselves can relate to these stories. There's some times where there's some serious pucker factor.
Oh yeah. It's like,
Am I doing the right thing?
What do we do?
Am I doing the right thing? I don't have any money. I'm flat broke. I should be bankrupt, and why am I still going?
Yeah.
I guess for me it was, I felt like people liked what we were trying to do. They wanted to buy it. Sometimes supply was a problem. And we just wouldn't stop. Probably should have some days, felt like it, but we just wouldn't quit.
Right. It's just like grinding for me. Some days you can get in there and sit down at the grinder, just everything works. And then there's days that you got to fight it a little bit, but never give up. It's usually, for me, I always say that the one that fights you the hardest ends up to being the best.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I'm super happy 30 years later. I mean, there's been some bends in the road that I didn't anticipate. My old business partner and I at one point came to a spot where we were going different directions. Okay. And then my wife came into the business, and she's been my rock star confidant for 53 years in a personal way, and then as a business partner for 25 years day to day, I guess, or 20 years anyway. And so those are the things that I think back on and remember, is because it's a family company. It still is.
Right.
I'm happy to say that the folks that we have here, we've got a lot of folks that have been with us. We've got several 25 plus year people and a bunch of 20-year plus people, and it makes me feel good that they took a chance on us, just like Custom Knife Makers took a chance on us. Still do, not as much maybe as they used to, but I feel good about that. That's been, when I kind of reflect back on the first 30 years, of which I hope is just the first 30 of many more 30s.
Right.
Makes me feel good.
It should. Yeah. You worked hard to create what you have created, and you should be proud of it.
A lot of help. A lot of good people along the way. So
Let's go hunting.
I think that's a deal. It's a wrap.